This story comes from a woman named Jenna, who worked as a night nurse at a hospital in Ohio. Jenna had been working the night shift in the ICU for about 2 years. She was used to the quiet, the dim hallways, the hum of machines. Most nights were uneventful, but one night she encountered someone who shouldn't have been there. It was around 3 a.m. Jenna was doing her rounds, checking on patients, when she noticed a man standing at the end of the hallway. The lights at that end were flickering. They did that sometimes. Old building. He wasn't wearing a hospital gown. He wasn't wearing scrubs. He was just standing there, in jeans and a hoodie, staring down the hall, directly at her. His face was pale, almost gray, and he wasn't moving, not even breathing from what she could tell. Jenna walked toward him and asked if he needed help, if he was looking for someone. He turned to look at her, and he smiled, but it wasn't a normal smile. His lips pulled back too far, showing too many teeth, and his eyes, they were completely black. No whites, just black. He said, "I'm just visiting." His voice was wrong, too deep, like it was coming from somewhere else, like multiple voices layered on top of each other. Jenna asked who he was there to see. The man didn't answer right away. He just kept smiling. Then he tilted his head to the side, too far, way too far, like his neck was broken. And when he did, Jenna heard it, a wet cracking sound, like bones grinding against each other. And then he started walking, past her, toward one of the patient rooms. His movements were stiff, jerky, like he was being pulled by strings. His feet barely made any sound on the floor, and as he passed her, Jenna noticed something that made her stomach turn. He had no reflection in the window behind him. Jenna followed him anyway. She told him visiting hours were over and that he needed to leave now. But the man tilted his head again, this time the other way. Another sickening crack, and he said, "She's expecting me." Then he leaned in close, so close Jenna could feel his breath on her face. It was ice cold, and it smelled like decay, like something that had been dead for weeks. And he whispered, "She's been expecting me for a long time. She called me." Jenna tried to back away, but her legs wouldn't move. She was frozen. And then the man did something that made her blood turn to ice. He reached up and pulled down his hood. His head was wrong. The top of his skull was caved in like he'd been hit with something. And through the matted hair, Jenna could see dried blood, old blood, and something else. Movement, like something was crawling underneath his skin. Before Jenna could scream, he pushed past her. His hand touched her arm, and it felt like ice, like touching a corpse that had been in a freezer. He walked into the room. Immediately, Jenna called security. Her hands were shaking so bad she dropped her phone twice. She could barely press the buttons. But when security arrived 2 minutes later and entered the room, the man was gone. The window was still locked from the inside. There was no other exit. And the patient, the woman in the coma, was still lying there. But something was different. Her eyes were open. Jenna felt her blood turn to ice. The woman's eyes had been closed for 3 weeks, but now they were open, wide open, staring at the ceiling, unblinking. And her mouth was open too, like she'd been screaming. But there was something else, something that made one of the security guards actually throw up. Her hands were covered in fresh blood. Her nail fingers were broken, cracked, and on the bedsheet next to her were words. scratched into the fabric with her nails. He found me. Security checked her vitals. She was still in a coma, technically, but her eyes stayed open. The doctors couldn't explain it. And her hands kept moving, twitching like she was trying to write something else. Security searched the entire floor. They checked every room, every closet, every storage area. Nothing. They checked the cameras. And that's when things got even worse. Because when they reviewed the footage, they saw Jenna talking to someone in the hallway. They could see her backing up, see her face go pale, see her following something. But the man wasn't there. The hallway was empty, completely empty. But that wasn't the worst part. When they checked the footage from inside room 312, they saw something that made everyone go silent. The camera showed the door opening by itself. Then the old woman's machines started going haywire. Her heart rate spiked to 180, then dropped to 0, then spiked again. The monitors were going insane. And in the corner of the frame, barely visible in the darkness, was a shadow, a tall, dark shape standing over the woman's bed, leaning over her. The shadow was there for exactly 30 seconds, and during those 30 seconds, you could see the woman's body convulsing, like she was having a seizure. But the worst part, the absolute worst part, was that you could hear something on the audio, whispering, low, guttural, in a language no one recognized. And then the woman's eyes opened, her mouth opened, and the shadow leaned down like it was putting its face right next to hers. Then the shadow disappeared, just vanished. Jenna watched the footage 3 times. She couldn't believe what she was seeing, but she knew what she'd experienced. She knew someone was there. And then one of the security guards pointed something out that made her skin crawl. In the footage, right before the shadow disappeared, you could see the woman's hand. It moved, scratched something on the sheet, and she was pointing at the door like she was trying to point at something leaving the room. But there was something else, something no one noticed at first. When they enhanced the audio, underneath the whispering, you could hear another sound. Counting. Someone was counting, backwards, from 10. The woman in room 312 passed away that morning at exactly 6 a.m. The official cause of death was cardiac arrest, but the doctor who examined her said something was off. He said it looked like she'd been scared to death. Her face was frozen in an expression of pure terror, eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream. But here's where it gets even stranger. When they ran her fingerprints, trying one last time to identify her, they got a match. The woman's name was Margaret Holbrook. She'd been reported missing 23 years ago from that exact same hospital. She'd been a patient there, room 312, the same room. And according to the records, she'd walked out of the hospital one night, just disappeared. Security footage from back then showed her walking down the hallway at 3 a.m., following someone, but the cameras never showed who she was following. She just walked out the front door and vanished for 23 years. And now she was back in the same room, and whatever she'd been running from all those years ago had finally found her. Jenna requested a transfer after that. She refused to work that floor again. But before she left, she went back to room 312 one last time. She had to see it, had to know if there was something she missed. The room was empty, cleaned, ready for the next patient. But when Jenna walked in, she felt it. That same cold, that same presence, like something was still there, watching. And when she looked at the wall above where the woman's bed had been, she saw something that made her run out of that room and never go back. Someone had scratched something into the paint. Recent, fresh. The paint was still flaking off. 3 words, barely visible, but clear enough. He came back. But underneath that were numbers, scratched deep into the wall. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. The counting stopped at 6. Jenna quit a week later. She never worked nights again. She tried to forget about it, move on. But 3 months later, she got a letter in the mail. No return address, just her name and address written in shaky handwriting. Inside was a single piece of paper with 1 sentence. He's counting down for you too. And at the bottom of the page were numbers. 5, 4, 3. Jenna burned the letter, changed her phone number, moved to a different city. She's never told anyone where she lives now. But sometimes, late at night when she's trying to sleep, she hears it, whispering, counting, getting closer to 0. And she wonders, what happens when the counting stops? Why did the counting start at 10 for Margaret, but only 5 for her? And who or what is doing the counting? She doesn't know, and she's terrified that one day soon she's going to find out.